As a small business owner, have you ever felt overwhelmed by the pressure of choosing the right hire or leading a team? Or have you ever found yourself tolerating a bad hire because you fear trying and failing again as you repeat the hiring process? If so, you're not alone, and you are in the right place. Welcome to the Growing Your Team podcast. The Growing Your Team podcast teaches business owners like you to expand your unique business by teaching you to master the hiring and team management process. Hiring and managing a team does not have to be a challenge. You just have to learn to do it right. And the Growing Your Team podcast teaches you how to become a confident leader who hires right every single time. Now, let's jump into the show where each episode you will learn tips on how to identify what type of help you need on your team, how to source amazing candidates, how to conduct interviews that lead you to your ideal team member, how to onboard successfully, and how to lead every person in your business so you have a team of rock stars who you are happy to pay every single paycheck. So let's jump in and teach you how to hire like a pro.
Hello, Jamie Van Kuyk here, and welcome back to the Growing Your Team podcast. Today, I have on guest Melanie Bowman. Melanie is an EOS implementer. She discovered EOS after she was 10 years into operating her home care business and felt like she hit a ceiling. She knew there had to be a better way, but she was often taking 2 a.m. phone calls and dealing with angry clients because their growth had outpaced their processes, and she had people issues that just seemed impossible to fix. Then she learned about EOS. Going through EOS, they were able to double their revenue over a 3-year people, make people decisions that they once thought were impossible, and she even started to have fun again in her business. After a successful exit from the home care business, Melanie has gone on to start 2 other companies, write a book, and become a professional EOS implementer. Melanie is here today having a conversation about what EOS looks like when implemented in a business from a people perspective, how it can help you understand if you have the right seats in your organization and the right people in those seats. We are also talking about values and why it's important for your team to understand your values so that way you can grow the culture that is important to you. So let's jump into this conversation and learn all about EOS and how it can really help you select and grow the team that is going to have you be profitable and happy in your business. Hi, Melanie. Thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Hey, how are you, Jamie?
I'm doing great. All right. Before we jump into the conversation, can you take a moment and introduce yourself and your business?
Yeah, so I am Melanie Bowman. I'm a certified EOS implementer, which is the entrepreneurial operating system. And I lead full day strategy sessions for the leadership teams of small to medium-sized businesses. And basically, I work to help leadership teams get better at 3 things, which is vision, traction, and healthy. So getting the leadership team 100% on the same page about where they want to go, having a clearly articulated plan on how to get there. Traction is instilling the rhythms of accountability, discipline, and focus so that no matter where the company is, you can always see people executing really well on that vision. And then healthy, which is, I think, what I'm really excited about talking to you about today. And the most relevant part of our conversation will be getting the leadership team cohesive, open and honest, a little fun loving, because a lot of the times we find leadership teams are not that way. So that's what we do: vision, traction, and healthy.
Yes, I love it. It's been a few years since I was first introduced to the EOS, concept and everything. And It's definitely something that I love hearing when businesses are going through the EOS process, because first off, they're open to coaching. They understand who they need. The process that they're brought through makes it very clear of what seats they need on their team, what talent they don't have and they need, and everything. And so they're some of my favorite clients to work with, is when I get to work with people that are going through EOS.
Yeah, I love what you said about they're coachable because it is a very specific mindset that we really enjoy working with. It's just so funny that that energy attracts a certain kind of energy, right? Like that open, honest, growth-oriented, goal-driven mindset just attracts kind of the same people.
Yes. Yeah. And it's always one of those things, like I hear a lot of times in the coaching space is you already have all the answers, you know what you need. And I'm just like, no, I don't think that's necessarily true. Because if you had all the answers, you probably wouldn't necessarily need the help and support. And you might have the ability to learn all the answers, but there's so much in business that we don't know because we've never done it before. And I think sometimes when you allow someone who is not in the day-to-day to guide you and help you see the path that you didn't even know existed or that you needed, is so powerful. And it really helps take you to that next level.
Absolutely. I mean, I see myself as a teacher. So I teach people just a set of real world practical tools that helps them get more of the right stuff done in their business week in and week out. I'm also a facilitator. So I just, I'm not a guru in people's business, right? I don't have to be an expert in their business, but I can facilitate all the wisdom and all the knowledge that's already in the session room. And then we can go get a strategy that we can then go execute on. And then a coach, like you said, because just like a really talented sports team or a superstar athlete, sometimes you just can't see yourself playing the game, right? And you just need someone to kind of watch that tape with you and point some things out that maybe you can't see.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important. Like you, just as you were talking about that, I was thinking about that is, so I think what some people know, some people might not know is, I do aerial dance, and there's times when we're on the equipment and our coach and our instructor is like, you got to do this. And there's these little teeny tiny movements and you're like, but I'm doing it. And they're like, no, you're not. And like just that little bit where they can tell you, and then sometimes watching the video and show you, it's like right here, you need to move this way. And you're like, oh, I thought I was doing that, but once I sat down and you explained it to me and you showed it to me and we really looked at things, I see might have been doing it 60%, but I wasn't doing it 100% yet because I didn't understand what it meant to take it from 60 to 100. So having that person just help you see what you can't see yourself.
Exactly. Yes, I love that. And I do know you do the aerial dance from Facebook stuff or maybe Instagram.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah,
All that.
it looks very fun, very impressive.
I know we'll have to get you to a class someday.
Mm, I would love it. I'm in.
Yes. Yeah. So I just like, there's so much there that is just like so great to like get into. And a lot of that things of, just sometimes needing the support. You mentioned something about you don't need to be an expert in someone's business to be able to provide them the insight and guidance they need to get over their roadblocks, take their business to that next level, become that cohesive team. And I feel like that is so important because I feel like when it comes to hiring or even hiring the people like the contractors and the outside people to support us as business owners, one of the things people get stuck on a lot is someone needs to fully understand my industry. This
Right.
person needs to be an expert in this. And there's a lot of times I sit there and I say, I don't think that's necessarily true. This person is not the hands-on executor that needs to fully understand the ins and outs of how this works. They need to be the expert in what they're doing. And some concepts, some roles, coaching and guidance, for example, can fall across multiple industries because there's certain things that are not industry specific. So
Yeah.
what do you do when people come to you and they say, well, have you ever worked with someone in this industry? Are you capable of working with someone in this industry?
Yeah. It's every day. Like we get this question every day. I think what I usually say is, does your business have people? And they say yes. And I'm like, awesome, I can help. EOS can work. If your business has humans, I can help because it's an operating system, right? So I don't have to know anything about the software system that you use to help you implement the real world practical tools that can just help you gain traction in your business. I don't need to know the ins and the outs, but we have a very deep understanding of the operating system as a whole.
Yeah, I think that's very similar to like what I tell people. It's like when we go to hire, I'm just like, all right, if you're hiring the person that's the executor of something very technical, that industry knowledge sometimes matters. And with recruiting, I always say, but even as the outside recruiter, I'm not doing that final interview. So we need to make sure someone's in that final interview who can actually gauge the minute differences and whether someone is technically capable of doing this job. But a lot of the other things, it's like, it's not industry specific. It's not that tactical stuff. If you have people and you have expectations for roles, that's what we're looking for. Can someone meet the expectations? And if you can be clear on the expectations, we can create a hiring strategy that will help figure out if the candidate can meet those expectations. I don't need to know how to do XYZ in order to be able to find someone who can do XYZ for you. So I love that you come in the same thing. It's like, it's really flipping that mindset of your support doesn't have to be the industry expert in every role. That doesn't need to be the case.
Right. I mean, I think you're hitting at one of the biggest obstacles I think leaders face, and that is not having an essential set of principles that helps guide our hiring decisions, right? Like we can have the most beautiful resume with the most seasoned professional, but if they don't align with our core values or who we are as people, they're going to stick out like a sore thumb, and we're probably not going to enjoy working with those people, and we're wasting their time. We're wasting the organization's time. Right. And as long as they're coachable, like you said, starting with really intentional, measurable questions in the interview process that really gets to a company's core values is really so important. It comes before the strategic, the tactical approach to hiring. I feel like that's my stance.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I say all the time is just because someone's good at what they do doesn't mean they're right for you. So it's really figuring out, how do we identify if someone is right for you? And do you know your culture? Do you understand what success looks like? Because yes, that person is amazing, but they might not be amazing inside your company. It might not be the right fit for them. They might not be happy, and you might not be happy with them. And I feel like when we bring in those people where that happiness is not going to happen, and we struggle and we're like, I don't get it. Maybe don't need this role. Maybe hiring is just not for me. And it's like, okay, we hired the wrong person because we weren't clear on who we needed outside of someone that can do XYZ tasks. Like we really need to understand our culture. And so I think with that, like, as you're working with businesses, what are some of like the common mistakes you find businesses and leaders make when it comes to really identifying their company culture?
Yeah. Core values, like in the early 2000s, they got a bad rap because one of Enron's core values was integrity. And we all know how that worked out. But I think they walk into my session room and they'll often be like, man, we have such a wonderful culture. And I'll dig deeper and ask why. And they'll say, we have a foosball table and our boss orders us pizza and beer every Friday. We get to wear jeans to work every Friday, and we're moving to a 4-day work week. And man, are those beautiful perks. I love those. Like those are amazing, but those are perks. Those are not the culture, right? That's not the culture. Is this very intentional thing that you are continuously working towards, right? So that starts with finding out who you are as people or creating your core values. And these are just an essential set of guiding principles. So they're timeless. You set them one time. And I think oftentimes people mistake the exercise of setting their core values almost as like a business strategy or a business plan. So sometimes people will say to me, we have to be so innovative next quarter. So that's our core value. Like that is what we got to do. We're going to be really innovative. And so after we dig a little deeper and we're like, okay, well, let's talk about in the past 6 months, give me 3 examples of when you've been really innovative. And it's like crickets. And so we land on sometimes people, as they go about discovering their core values, they come up with these things that are a little aspirational, right? So being innovative to get ahead in your industry is a wonderful priority to focus on for a quarter, or maybe you make it a yearly goal, but maybe it's not your core value, right? So I think people fall into that aspirational trap sometimes, or they create a core value that's maybe a little bit of like permission to play. So that is an example of like a hospital touting that they provide quality care, right? Well, if you don't provide quality care, I'm not coming to your hospital. You're not going to stay in business, right? You have to provide quality care. But I think also, I think people fail to like have objective tools to maybe like measure people's, adherence to their core values. So we have a people analyzer. So like you set your core values and then you rate people on a plus, minus, and minus scale. And you use this as a really simple but very powerful and objective tool every quarter to have difficult conversations with people and show them where they're doing an amazing job and maybe where they can maybe improve a little bit.
Yeah, I love that. So thinking of it, so when I'm working with a new client and we're going through our hiring kickoff so we can really understand the culture and how do we find the right person, I ask, what are your values? And sometimes people will go, oh, I worked with a branding person on this. I have them written down somewhere. Let me go find that piece of paper. And I immediately stop them. I say, no, nope, you don't need to go find those. If it's not something that you're really putting into your day-to-day, I don't care what you put on a piece of paper, because when you're working with a marketing person, it sounded good. Like their values that you liked, they're not your core values. They're not really what motivates you as an organization. There's also sometimes they start listing off their values, and I was like, that's great, but that's all external. What are those values like internally? How do you work? How do you operate? It's like the example you gave of the hospital of providing quality care. Okay, yeah, like that's what your customers expect. That's not how you operate internally. When you were given the examples of like the 4-day work week and the foosball table and all that, and you're like, those are perks. I think that's another thing, whereas people are like, they list sometimes those things as well. And I'm like, okay, well, that's not really your value. Your value might be that we recognize that our people are people and they have lives outside of work, and they're more than just the work that they produce. Okay, well, how does that show up in your day-to-day? How do you do that? Well, we give people a 4-day work week so that way they can have an extra day with their family and things like that, where it's like, okay, well, you're actually doing things that support your values versus you're just putting values on paper because it sounds good.
Yeah.
And yeah,
I would add to that, Jamie, also, I think they say you have to hear something 7 times in order to hear it for the first time, right? So we create these beautiful core values, and it's really important that you create kind of like a substantive talk track or almost a core values speech, if you will. It's what we call it. One, because you need to provide equity to the core values, because company A might have the value of reliability, and company B might also have that same core value, but it means 2 totally different things. So you have to be able to explain very clearly and with a lot of intention what your core values mean, and then provide the opportunity and the opening for people to internalize them, right? And with all of they used to say you have to hear it 7 times. But I just heard, and this is insane to me, but with all the crazy distractions we have now, they're saying you have to hear something 37 times.
37. Oh my goodness.
Before you hear it for the first time. So yeah, don't get frustrated. I want your listeners to know, like, don't get frustrated if you have these beautiful core values and you start talking about them and people like are ambivalent or they roll their eyes or they don't understand because it takes a minute to get them internalized. And then only then, after they're internalized, can you really start measuring people, holding them accountable, right? I mean, these are the behaviors that we expect from our employees, basically. And good leadership looks a lot like good parenting. I know we both have two girls, so we know that our kids love just not too many rules, not too few rules, right? So, like, the sweet spot, you should have like 3 to 7 core values, no more than 7, because it becomes more difficult for your people to internalize it. But the people in our organizations are by nature, we're complicated creatures, and we really want a set of principles to be guided by, and those are your core values. And so actually creating core values is a beautiful thing you can do to help your people.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's to going back to like one of the other things you said that we really need to stress is you mentioned bringing those core values into reviews and helping people see, and you're measuring people against these values and everything. And I feel like that's so important because I feel like there are also companies out there that they do a lot of good work creating their values and they are meaningful values, but then they never really talk about them. Maybe it's at that all company meeting where it's like, okay, we're going to talk about these real quick, and then you're not going to hear about them again.
Yeah.
And bringing them into your work day to day and helping people see how they're measuring against these is what is really needed. It's really what's going to set those top employees apart versus those other ones, as people that maybe are no longer a fit for your organization, and they're making it so you have to work harder to bring them along because they're not the right person. And so I love that, like just kind of bringing it full circle versus we're going to train you on these values. You're going to see them posted places, but that's all we're ever going to do about them.
Yeah. And also empowering people to like really engage with the core values. So they're not all, your core values are supposed to help you hire, fire, review, reward, and recognize everything you've got going on in your business, right? So I love when teams are really intentional about, like, I have a team that has 4 core values, and every quarter they pick one core value and there's like a committee formed. Like, we have let's say the core value is no EORs, which is a value I love. So like, not about like toxic positivity, but like no drama, staying positive, right? They form a committee to talk about like, how are we going to engage with this core value? How are we going to highlight it and celebrate it? And that's a really good way to internalize core values, is highlight one value every quarter.
Yes, I love that. And I will also add, when I am working with a client that is an EOS client as well, they know their core values. They don't have to pull out a piece of paper. And once again, it's not just remembering, okay, teamwork's a core value. They can rattle off, teamwork's one of our core values. This is what it looks like inside our organization. And I love it because it really does, as you mentioned, it guides the hiring. So they know their values and we can use those values to find the right person.
100%. I love that. Yes, that makes me very happy.
Yes. All right. So besides when it comes to these core values and really understanding them and building them into your culture and your hiring and your reviewing of employees and your letting go of employees, what else is included in that people component of the EOS model?
Oof, yeah. So I don't think any entrepreneur, when they start dreaming about starting their business, they're not like, I am so excited to deal with all the people issues that I'm going to have to deal with every day, right?
Right.
That people component is always like, yeah, it's the most sensitive, it's the heaviest, but the most powerful component, I think, of all the 6 key components. And really, the people component is just made of 2 tools and disciplines that we use: the right people and the right seats. So those 2 terms popularized by Jim Collins in his book, Good to Great. absolutely necessary read for any entrepreneur. But we start with, the right people very much is related to your core values. Are they at or above the bar with all of your core values? And also, do they get the role, want the role, and have the capacity to do what we expect from them and do it really well? Can they execute on the major roles that define their seat, right? So we call that GWC, get it, want it, and have the capacity to do it. And then the Hallmark tool, one of the Hallmark tools of EOS in the people component is our accountability chart. So we structure the organization with a structure first, then people. And that's really hard for leaders when they're starting to structure their organization because they're like, well, Jessica does this and this. And you have to say, like, okay, you guys don't work here. You are the board of directors at the 30,000-foot level working on the business, right? What's the best structure for the organization? And then we ask them to look 6 to 12 months out. Because if we're asking how you do things right now, it's too short-sighted. And then 5 years from now is a little too long. So that sweet spot is 6 to 12 months. What is the best structure for the business? And that's really an eye-opening, incredible exercise for people to like have these aha moments of, oh my gosh, our operations actually builds out into 3 major functions on our leadership team. We never really thought of it that way. And then we have to discuss, like, is this a capacity issue now? Are we going to have multiple people sitting in, more than one seat? Or do we need to go outside of the organization and hire for more people? So it works also as kind of like a gap assessment. What are our needs? And so you structure the organization and then you start putting people in the seats. You also, in that accountability chart, you put the 5 major roles that we want that person to consistently execute on. So your accountability chart ends up not being an org chart, but kind of an org chart on steroids. So it's at its core, it's a reporting and an accountability structure. So it's creating a lot of organizational clarity. It's eliminating confusion, politics, and just getting, it's being kind to our people, because the more clear we can get on our expectations and what a good job for them looks like, the kinder we are being as leaders. It's the most kind thing we can do. So that accountability chart really is kind of like the hallmark of that people component. It's huge. And I don't want to forget to say what it is not. The accountability chart is not like a hierarchy, and it's not a status structure. It is just a reporting and an accountability structure. And so that's a good first step into like highlighting your people issues and also seeing where you're knocking it out of the ballpark too.
Yes. Yeah, I love that. And like one of the things I think is super important is a lot of times, especially like the businesses I work with, they are people focused. They care about their employees. They want to do good by their employees. They don't want to take advantage of people. And that's actually one of the things I look for when I bring on clients. Like if you're like, I just need someone I can pay minimum wage and get this task done, I don't care about them. Guess what? I'm probably not bringing you on as a client, because I think we need to be people focused and people first. The problem with that is sometimes we become so people focused that we allow the people that we hired to limit our business, because our businesses are in this growth phase. They are changing. What we have today for our business is not going to be the same thing we have a year from now in our business, because our revenue is growing, our ability to take on new clients, our products and services might change, which means the seats you have might change. And if we view it from that people first, when we're identifying what we need in terms of our org structure, a lot of times we don't get the roles that we need. We don't have the support that we need because we're too afraid to say they might no longer be the right person for our business. And I'm like, but I got to keep them. They're a great, dedicated employee. And so I love that you encourage them to say, we need to step back. We need to look at the business first. We're looking at from this high level view. What seats do we need? What is important? What are the core things that these roles are going to do? Okay, now let's see, can we plug our people into those seats? And I'm sure sometimes that brings up the tough conversations of this person is no longer a fit for our organization. And yes, those are tough conversations that sometimes have. It is tough to let go of someone you feel has been so dedicated, who got you to where you're at. But we sometimes have to make those decisions in our business, and they're horrible and tough decisions to do, but they are the right decisions at times.
100. It's the hardest part about entrepreneuring and the hardest part about running small business. We find that when you embark on structuring the business and creating your accountability chart, you're going to identify two people issues. One is you have a right person in the wrong seat. So this is someone who consistently exhibit your core values. You love this person. You genuinely get fulfillment and enjoy from spending time with them. Just like you mentioned, they got you to where you are, but maybe they've outgrown their seat or the seat has outgrown them. And hopefully you're in an organization where you can find another seat for them on the accountability chart, right? And if not, that's a really, really tough conversation that you have to have. The other people issue that you uncover is a wrong person, right seat. So this is someone who has never missed a deadline. They're shooting off emails at 3 a.m., super hard worker, and they tell you that they work super hard all the time, but they just don't exhibit your core values. And so when this person walks in the room, you kind of get the heebie-jeebies, or you're kind of like, there's something about that person. You don't know what it is, but you're like, that person just rubs me the wrong way. And those are the people, those are the decisions. Those are really tough because those people are chipping away at your culture in ways you can't even see and ways you don't even understand. But that's when you have to make a really tough people decision. And we urge our leaders, it's really tough, but you can't run. Once you start structuring the accountability chart, you can't run from those issues. It kind of shines a flashlight on them.
Right. Yeah. There's a few things in there I kind of want to discuss before we wrap up for today is when you made the comment, they're chipping away at your culture.
Yeah.
And I feel like that is so important because I remember back when I was working in corporate, we had a group, I would say the easiest way to put them is they became a group of toxic employees, and certain people in the leadership team were like, okay, we can turn these people around. Let's get them to be great employees again. Because at one point in time, they were great employees and they still were doing their core job well. There wasn't problems with their execution, but they really were chipping away at the culture. And it was like this toxic culture was starting to spread out from this group. And one by one, they started turning in their notice and going elsewhere. And people were like, oh my gosh, what are we doing? Why can't we save them? Why can't we keep them on the team? And I just remember going to someone one day, it's like, we need to just let them go. They're making the decision to leave. We've identified that they're not good for that culture. Why do we feel so strongly on saving them and keeping them a part of our team? Sometimes we have to recognize that the best thing that can happen is to let someone go, either by their own decision that they're going someplace else or making those tough calls and saying, you need to leave this organization. I remember having a team member once of having that tough conversation of coming down to him, I don't think there's anything that we can do to make you happy at this job. And I even said, I was like, maybe you need to find another job. And at first I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I said that. And they came back later and said, that's what I needed to hear. You're right. I'm not happy here. I'm never going to be happy here. I need to go elsewhere. And so we shouldn't feel so strongly to keep everyone on our team that is not working.
Oh, I love that. And honestly, like you said, to wrap all this up, Jim Collins, and this reframed the way I think about people issues, and it changed the way I coach and everything. It really changed my life. He says, if you are keeping someone who is not the right person in the right seat, you are stealing their life.
Mm-hmm.
Because people are creative and full and whole, and they have talents that will shine somewhere else. And if you are holding on to them, it's so unkind.
Yeah.
And that's so helpful to me. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's one of those things like you see people all the time. It's like, oh my God, I hate my job. It's the worst, 40 hours of the week. I go just because I need a paycheck. And I feel like a lot of those people feel stuck and they're stuck in a job that doesn't work for them. And I think
Yeah.
sometimes we need to empower people to be able to go find the thing that's right for them versus like, you're here, you always have to be here. But the other thing I just want to touch on real quick is you mentioned like, okay, if someone's in the wrong seats,
Yeah.
maybe you could find them another seat within the organization. And I know with a lot of people that listen to this podcast, like we have micro teams, so that you don't have a whole lot of seats. Maybe as
Yeah.
you're doing your planning, you can see that 12 months down the road, there will be an opportunity for them to switch to another seat once you get to that point. But I feel like this is that reminder of, once again, we have to fill the seats that we have, not the seats that we'd like to make for people. So it's important to be very clear on the seats that you have and the seats that you're going to have.
Yeah.
But also, this is why it's important to really invest in the training and the growth of our team members. And as we have those visions for how our business is going to grow, when someone has I forget exactly the three things that you said, but I think it was like want, capability, and
Get it, want it, and have the
get it.
capacity to do it. We call it GWC.
GWC. Okay. Yes. So the whole thing is like, they might not be capable today because they don't have the training and stuff for it. So how can you get your team members to be capable? If you know you're going to shift from this to this, how do we help get our team members to that next level thing if they are going to be capable of doing it? And sometimes we get so stuck in, I hired them for this, let's keep them here. And we forget about that next level growth that employees want. And sometimes we need to do that so that way we don't have to let people go when they no longer work for their seats because we prepared them for the next seat.
Absolutely. Right. And so the G and the W of the GWC, not negotiable because the get it is like your natural ability to do a job. You just really understand the ins and the outs of it. The want it is you genuinely love the work. Like you just get fulfillment and enjoy from doing what's expected of you. And then the capacity we can work with, we can, just like you said so beautifully, we can coach that up, right? The capacity is getting to the emotional, intellectual, physical, and time capacity. And all of that we can work with. The problem is in small businesses, a lot of times we don't have the time, energy, and resources to coach someone up. But as you're such a natural leader, and it's so true. We always have to be thinking about developing our people and coaching them up, no matter where our company is going. That has to be a priority. So true.
Exactly. All right. I have one more question before we start to go into our wrap up questions, but I think one's going to flow nicely into that.
Okay.
So I honestly believe, like, as we talked about, that sometimes as business owners, we need a coach, we need a consultant from the outside that's helping us see those gaps that we can't see ourselves in order to get to that next level. How does a business know if they are in a place where the EOS model is right for them?
Yeah. Oh, I love that question. A lot of people ask, like, am I too small? Right? Like, I only have 3 employees or 4 employees. Am I too small? And it's really about your mindset. If you are ready to change the way you do things, because it's not like a seminar, it's not a class. It's literally like changing the way you run your business. And if you are not super hesitant for that, like if you're open to change and way more afraid of the status quo than you are of change, I would say pursuing EOS is probably a good idea. Typically, we serve people between 10 to 250 employees. I have clients that have less. I have clients that have more than that. But really, it's more about the mindset than anything else. So I would say if you're ready to change the way you run your business. And also, we work with people who are frustrated with lack of time, lack of profit, frustrated with their people. If you're at the point where you're frustrated and you're feeling coachable, I think you're ready.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it is, You've reached that point where maybe what got you here is not going to get you to that next step. I think frustration is one of those things. It's so key. Like there's a lot of points in our businesses where we're just like, maybe this isn't worth it. I'm just going to throw in the towel. And it's like, how do you get to the next point so you don't have to give it all up? So it can be something that makes you happy again.
Right. Yeah.
All right, Melanie. So if someone is ready to explore EOS, see more if it's right for them, how can people get in touch with you?
You can email me. You can email me at melanie.bowman@eosworldwide.com. And I would love to hear from you. You can also find me on LinkedIn, Melanie Bowman. And those are really the best ways.
Sounds good. And of course, your email address and everything will be in the show notes over at growingyourteam.com. Okay. Final question that I love to ask all my guests. We've all had leaders or managers that have stood out to us. Think of a leader or manager who has stood out to you and share one thing about them.
So when we had our home care agency, our director of nursing, her name was Marcy. Her real name was Marcella, but we called her Marcy Willette. And she sadly passed away not too long ago from a really kind of crazy cancer that was just brutal. But the thing I remember about Marcy is that her leadership was not much about doing. It was about how she made people feel. So I remember how she made everybody feel. Her leadership was it was more of just like a presence about her than it was about like managing and executing and the doing. It was just, she was a naturally wonderful leader and she was great.
Yeah. I think that's so important because people want to feel good, as we talked about it before, like being in that company that makes them feel good, that lights them up. It touches those other things. It's like, yeah, I can be good at the execution part, but do I feel good doing this? Am I in the right environment for me? So I feel like as a leader, that's so important to focus more than just the tactical, are you doing your work, but how do you feel as a person here in the office? Who are you? Making it that full circle. And that's what matters. And that's what lifts up a lot of people on the team to be able to get to that next level, or just that constant encouragement to continue doing well at their job.
Yeah. Very well said.
All right, Melanie, thank you so much for joining us today on the Growing Your Team podcast.
Thank you so much for having me on, Jamie.
Are you ready to hire a new team member for your business and you want to ensure you hire the person who can succeed in the role, make you happy, and positively impact your bottom line? Then let's talk and see how growing your team can help you master the art of hiring. Through bespoke hiring frameworks and comprehensive guidance, you will learn how to attract candidates who have the passion you desire and the skills needed to succeed. At Growing Your Team, women entrepreneurs and leaders work with us to help them expand their unique businesses by teaching them how to hire like a pro. Let's connect and see how we can help you. Send me an email at jamie@growingyourteam.com. That's Jamie, JAMIE @growingyourteam.com, or head on over to growingyourteam.com/jumpstart, with jumpstart being all one word, and let's talk about how you can become a confident leader who hires right every single time.